Hello and welcome to Wrestling and Everything Coast to Coast with your host, Buddy Sotelo Esquire, wrestling's premier photographer, Dr. Mike Leno, and effervescent Evan Ginsberg, a creative producer of The Wrestler and 365 Days. And if you haven't seen it, go out and watch it on video. But
you got the math wrong.
350 days. Sorry, 350 days.
Yeah.
Yes. But tonight we have, I have numbers on the brain because tonight is a very special show. It is show number 300. Yes, they said it couldn't be done, but we've done 300 consecutive shows. I've missed two weeks in the entire 5 years that we've done this, and that was because I was moving. So, but we have a very special guest on tonight, and it's a guy I know very well and have wanted to get on the show for that 5-year time because I've loved connecting back with people who meant a lot to me in the business. And few people mean as much to me in the business as one J.D. Big Ugly Bishop. And thank you so much for joining us for tonight's show.
Oh, thank you for having me, man. I appreciate it.
You cannot talk the history of NorCal professional wrestling and leave the name J.D. Big Ugly Bishop off that list. You've got to mention you, because you have crossed paths and worked with and trained and fought alongside or fought against everybody that has mattered in Northern California for over 20 years. And it was my pleasure to work with you back in California Championship Wrestling very closely as you were champion of that Fed, and I managed Vinny Massaro against you in some very memorable matches. And you were there when the Reno Scum premiered against and showed up with my man Mr. Massacre as Paul Isadora, and you also had Adam Thornstowe and
what about Mr. Primetime? Mr. Primetime, MPT?
He wasn't part of the Reno Scum, but we did have him in CCW. And you've been a super successful both promoter and trainer in Sacramento. So we're really proud to have you on tonight. And welcome to Wrestling and Everything Coast to Coast.
Thank you, man. It's a pleasure to be here.
Great. Well, so why don't you tell us all how you got, I don't even know how you got started in professional wrestling and how everything got started for you back in the day. So why don't you tell our audience a little bit about how that all got started?
Yeah, I guess the first when I was graduating high school, I had a choice to go play football at Humboldt State, or I was going to go to the Malenko school. I had just gotten a letter from both, and I really wanted to go to the Malenkos. But my dad pushed me to go play football because I was going to get a scholarship. State, I made it about the summer practice, got into some trouble, and they sent me home. So I got a job for a while, and I remember I had a brochure from the APW boot camp on my wall, and it was just sitting there. And then I left and went to the military. Came back 2 years later, fucking thing's still on my wall. I was just looking at it, and then my then girlfriend, who became my wife, told me, "Hey, either take that down or go train." So I hit up Roland, and I went down there and started training. Trained there almost a little more than a year and a half. Left there and then went to NAW in Fresno and finished my training there.
So is that
who
like
were your trainers though? Was it Modest and maybe?
Yeah, I was there. It was Modest and Donovan Morgan, and then Vinny was just helping out. But Frank Murdoch was always there, and then once in a while we'll get like a couple of the other professional guys would come in and like Boom Boom around and bump the shit out of us.
Boom Boom passed. We lost our brother Boom Boom. It was just sad.
Yeah. I was in the same class with Bison and Jardy.
Wow.
First group I started training with, and then I left. I finished my training up there.
Yeah, and then
I really left.
Oh yeah.
I left when Modest went to WCW and he got signed with WCW. I liked Modest the way he trained, and he was just a really nice, kicked our ass, but he was just really just a great trainer. And then when he left, it wasn't the same. So I just went elsewhere to get training,
Although the head trainer turned out to be Brian Danielson.
Yeah, he was there. I think he came like maybe 2 years after I had left. That caused
the whole formation of Modest basically and Bison and Donovan
Pro
taking
Wrestling Iron.
yeah, to form
Yeah,
Pro
Pro
Wrestling Iron. They only left like one piece of talent. It was exactly like Noah Japan when Mitsuharu Misawa, the third Tiger Mask,
Wrestling.
or the second Tiger
Yeah.
Mask, took everybody but Kawada from All Japan because Mrs. Baba was, Giant Baba died and she didn't know how to run a wrestling company. And they were disgusted and felt pissed. And they formed Noah Japan, who had the affiliation, brought over Donovan, Modest, Bison, etc. And then the exact same thing happens, but in the U.S., all those guys leave
Yeah.
to form Iron from APW. It was crazy, and then they went on to have a zillion tours. Once they formed Iron, those big three, the name three, had all those tours for Noah, like 29 tours total.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah,
amazing.
when they first started running, I think at this time, Gabe Ramirez had taken over a lot of and things like that. I had taken over Supreme Pro Wrestling and SAC, and they both wanted to kind of us to do business together. So I said, well, let's do a showcase match, and I had Sarah Del Rey representing Iron, and then Cheerleader Melissa representing APW, and we had them on the show wrestle each other because those were really the only two that they wanted to could be civil. So they worked each other, and it was great. And then afterwards, both companies came and said, hey, we want to do something where we kind of join forces. And I was just like, I told Gabe at the time, I was like, well, yeah, if I join with you, you're going to fire half my roster, probably more, because, you've got your own roster. So I can't fire all my students and my friends, And so he was like, all right, cool. He left. And then Iron asked me to pretty much the same thing. And I told them no. And then Frank's like, hey, you want to come do a show next weekend? I was like, sure. And I went and wrestled, I think Chicano Flame was my first match there. And then the rest is history. They put me and Vinny together, and then we were on a run.
Let me say something quickly, and I'll throw it back to Russ and Evan. I shot that match. Sarah, who was known, remember, I don't know, Roland gave her the name Nikki. Somebody gave her the name Nikki,
Yeah.
so she's working instead of her real name versus Melissa Anderson. And then, her dad came in. I think his name was Doug. I don't know if he was legit brothers with Billy or if that was just their tag team or what the deal was. But I want to comment on that shirt. Is that the Gold Dust Trio? Strangler, Ed Lewis, Billy Sandow, and Toots Monk. I know my effing history. JD and I are brothers as well. I know my fucking history, and that is an amazing shirt.
It's funny, when I go to shows, most people don't know what it is. Like, the only person that knew was Oliver John and Levi Shapiro. The only ones that knew who it was, who the Gold Dust Trio is. So
what the hell happened to Ollie John? Ollie John was what a great talent. And I remember, if you remember my old Canvas Cavity TV show, the TV talk show that we had syndication, Evan was my New York producer for it. Got it on some stations like Manhattan Neighborhood Network, and I forget the other ones in Long Island. But Ollie John came in with his trainer Paul DeMarco to my TV show, and Pepper Gomez came because he wanted to see who this talent was that could do, some MMA combat stuff, but primarily pro wrestling. And we all wanted Ollie to go to Japan. And I think from there he went and did some stuff with Harley Race, like at Cauliflower Alley. He worked with some of Harley's Japanese talent he trained. But did he have? I know he had like a concussion, a major one at the match at Cauliflower Alley where they had to stop the match, and he was working one of Harley's Japanese talents. Legit from Japan, but did something health-wise happen to him? He just seemed to fade away from the biz.
I think it was like a detached retina or something, and something in his eye, and he pretty much had to stop wrestling altogether. But he's my head trainer now at my school. He just came aboard with me a few months back. But
tell him we want him on the show. I would love to have him on the show.
But first and foremost, tell him that Russ and I say hello to Ollie John, because man, that guy could wrestle like nobody's effing business. He was so amazing all the years I photographed him.
Great mic worker. An amazing mic work.
He had it all. He had that
match. He had that effing Johnny. I told him about what Johnny Valentine did to Briscoe. The fans were getting upset because Valentine had Briscoe in a headlock for like 15 minutes in Florida for Eddie Graham. And Ollie John and Tim Thatcher, they had that match at the garage, APW garage, and it was out of this world. They did the exact same stuff. Basically the way Johnny Valentine booked it with Jack Briscoe. And it was amazing for those two guys in that particular year. It was an amazing match. My match of the year.
Yeah, no, with the exception of maybe two or three other people, Oliver's the best person I've ever been in the ring with. when I brought him into SPW, like we were all like, holy shit, we got to step up our game because this guy is just phenomenal, and he made us all get better. And he's like that now. Like he says he doesn't want to wrestle anymore, but he's training these kids, and he's taking more bumps than he would in a regular match in practice. He's.
Do you guys still have any contact with Paul DeMarco? For a while there, he was telling me, "Oh, yeah, I'm like living underneath a church. They don't know what I'm living. because he was down and out. But I've heard all kinds of urban legend from him. You got to take it with a grain of salt if he's working you."
No, I don't know. I from what I understand, I think Paul passed away.
Oh, really? Man,
Yeah,
that guy was a great talent in his day. He was tag champs for nearly a year with Lars Anderson for Roy Shire at the Cow Palace. The whole NorCal promotion. I mean, man, DeMarco was an outstanding talent, and then to see him play like a jobber doing a Russian character, shaving his head for Vern Gagne in the last dying days of the AWA was a shits. Maybe we better pitch to Evan.
Yes, Evan, do you have some question for our guest?
For those who don't know, can you tell us the history of the name Big Ugly?
After I had left my training school, I was still training there, but I had started getting work outside that company. I had got booked at Supreme Pro Wrestling, and my trainer, whose name was Brian Ward, he was trained from the Dungeon, so he's a Stu Hart guy. He was training us up in Fresno. He wanted me to do this character called the Chupacabra. So he bought me the gear, I had a mask and fucking everything, and I didn't really want to do it, but whatever, he's my trainer, so I'm doing it. Well, I get to this show to work, and Brian's like, yeah, I don't want you to debut the gimmick here. And I'm like, well, they've already been billing me, I don't have no other gear. And he's like, yeah, you don't debut it here. And what I should have done was just change the name and wore the same gear, but I just went in my gym bag and I had black sweatpants and a black t-shirt, a do-rag, and I was like, shit, what to get people to pop for me. At the time I was coaching football and I was the offensive line coach. So we called the offensive line the Big Uglies. So I figured, hey, they're all going to be here. When they hear that, they'll pop, So I call myself the Big Ugly. The JD's from a nephew or a cousin of mine that passed away. The Bishop's just a character in the comic books I've always liked. So I just kind of threw it all together on a whim. And when I came out and they started chanting ugly, ugly, the promoter's like, dude, that's your name from now on. I was like, if you're going to book me next month, you call me whatever the fuck you want. I'll keep doing it. So it just spurred from that,
Well, and what also came with was the very scary and intimidating ugly stick that you used to carry around with you. A 2x4 that was all wrapped in barbed wire. I had the pleasure of holding on to that thing during one of the crazy hurricane tornado matches that we tag team, no holds barred street fight matches that we had.
Yeah,
and that thing scared me. I was like,
we wanted to do
like
when we started when I took over SPW, I was like, we can't compete with APW as far as technical wrestling. Iron wasn't a thing yet. And I was like, BTW uses like a bunch of WWE guys or former guys. Like we can't compete with all that. So we have to do something different. And at the time, CZW and ECW were really big. So we were like, hey, let's just do hardcore. So we all kind of started getting different weapons and stuff that would make it work. And the ugly stick just fit for me, and I think Dante had something too, a kendo stick with something on it. And, we just all doing stupid stuff that, all the stuff I tell my students not to do now, we were doing it. We broke in, it's like try to be different and draw money. And then it was funny because the more it pissed rolling off, the more we would do it, because we're like, dude, if APW is like the biggest company in NorCal and he's talking about us, let's just keep doing it, So we just kept getting more extreme with our stuff and, started doing stupid things. But, we were young.
Well, SPW had its 20th anniversary show recently, didn't it?
I think they're on I want to say 20, closer to 25, I think. Maybe 20. I don't know. Yeah, they've done. Yeah, we just had was supposed to have a match there. I mean, it ended up kind of happening, but it was supposed to be all my former students against me and my new students. So it was going to be Chupacabra, Christina Von Eri, Flaco Loco, and Johnny Morrison. That's what we had to build, right? And then me, Bishop, Titus, and Salem were going to wrestle a 4-man against them. So we get out there, and Von Eri does a move off the top rope and knocks on her head. She gets knocked out. She's out cold. Carry her the back. I'm in there with Flaco. I throw a forearm and hit him right in the nose, and he's out. So it ends up being a tag with 2 of my kids against Chupi and Johnny Morrison because 3 minutes into the match, 2 of the people got knocked out. So we had to wrap it up. But I didn't get to really do nothing with Johnny. But it was good to see him. I haven't seen him in a couple of years. But Yeah, I think that was like the 20. I don't know what number it was. They've had so many of them. But yeah,
Well,
that
speaking
was
of
good.
that, you told us that Sir Samurai had like a health issue, so I want everybody to send out positive vibes. He's not a
Yes,
nicer
please.
guy. He's like you and I and Evan and Russ, loves biz history, knows his history. So what a great guy Sir Samurai is. Very quickly, too, we lost quite a few people that Evan Ginsberg alerted me to, and Brian Westcott, Johnny Legend being one of them, great Johnny Legend. I can't say enough great things about that guy from producing. I ran with John Arizzi, Fred Blassie's last fan club, and we called it King of Men. And when Johnny produced and nagged Freddie Blassie to cut the 4 songs for that thing with his sister Lynn producing, as well as the 2 movies, Hello from Hollywood, with Andy Kaufman, and then My Breakfast with Blassie, the spoof on My Dinner with Andre, with Blassie and Andy Kaufman, who Lynn was married to. But just and also, Ev, we lost an actor on The Wire that I think you wrote about, and he did some other things too. I don't know if you recall from that list because it was quite extensive. But we lost some real, obviously Hulk Hogan and my brother Sabu, Terry Brunk. I was there when the Sheik was breaking him, Judge Dredd, and RVD around 1988, 89
Yeah,
in Detroit.
Isaiah Whitlock Jr. from The
Right.
Wire. And for those who haven't seen The Wire, it's as great a show as you're ever going to see. I saw every episode, and it was really powerful. The all of Baltimore society, from the rich, the politicians, down to the drug dealers. It was an amazing show, and he was one of the stars of it. And I'd also like to acknowledge from High Records, the great Don Bryant, great R&B
Yeah.
singer. And what happened with Don Bryant was he was on High Records in the 70s, back when Al Green had hit after hit after hit. So he sort of got pushed to the side, but great, great R&B singer and a lovely person. So R.I.P. Don Bryant.
Getting back to Big Ugly. So, you've worked with everybody that's come through Northern California, but I would say, well, who would you consider is the most unique talent that you've worked with in all the time that you've been working in NorCal, that you've seen develop from just a seed to where they are today? Do you feel is the most incredible?
It'd probably be, I would say, J.R. Kratos would probably be, because when he first
Yeah.
started, he was an older rookie. He was, I think, mid 20s, mid to late 20s. But he came in as a freaking bodybuilder, and he first broke in, and like they pushed him to the moon right away, and he just wasn't ready for it. So I came back from my car injury. I was in a car wreck and I was out for like a year, and I came back and I was like, hey, let me work with this kid. And we went in there and worked a match, and I mean, he was so good so quick after that match. He just listened, and I remember we did a spot, and I just said, hey, we're just gonna fight, like make it look real. And we just fought around, and we were doing like, just, it looked like we were gonna fight. And from that point, he learned, like, man, this has got to look real. The people are into this. And from then he just progressed and kept getting better and better, and stopped working on trying to be diving over the top rope, and just throwing strikes and making each punch mean something, making each hit mean something. And now this guy's on top of the world. Him and his partner just won the Crockett Tag Team Tournament thing, and he's just phenomenal. He's just we just did the Hall of Fame a few weekends ago, and me and him hung out. He sat at my table and stuff, and just to see like where he's been and how good of a father and a husband he is, and how good of a worker he is. It's just such a good person, man.
See,
So,
but that was a loaded question because I thought you were going to say Timothy Thatcher.
well, the thing, Timmy, I would say he's unique because he's the one of the few ones that like to work the style I like, the mat wrestling style. Most people got into the high flying and diving and stuff. Bruce was probably the other one, but he left and got signed. So, but yeah, Timmy. I mean, what was really unique about Timmy was, like, he'd come to the house just after work one day. We would just train, go in the gym, just roll around. We'd meet at a park and just be doing chain wrestling. And he was a different breed. JR would want to go to the gym. We'd go to the gym and train, lift weights and stuff. But yeah, definitely Timmy was a different beast, man. He like I said, he got into this business as a reporter, and then he just wanted to ref. And I remember I told him, well, our refs do the same stuff our wrestlers do. So we're just rolling around shooting, and he takes his shirt off, and I was like, holy shit, you need to be a wrestler, dude. You have a better body than my whole roster, And he just, he's like, okay, I'll give it a shot. And then he just came over. He was coming over every day and just.
But he's gained like 100 pounds since he was in CCW.
Yeah, I mean, he's a monster. And same thing with Johnny. Like when Johnny was with me, he was skinny, still muscular, but really skinny, and now he's freaking just thick and ripped up still. And so those guys figure it out, and they're eating right now because they're getting paid well. So they figured it, everything, how to balance the work, the training, the home life, and food and diet and all that. So those three, and Adam Thorstone's another one that I can't say enough good things about, but yeah, if it was a unique, I'd probably have to sway towards Timmy, just because of the fact that he was just the only student that just couldn't get enough training. Like he just didn't care. He just a sponge, and he always wanted to train more. He'd tell me like, hey, Mike Quack, this weekend, you want to go? So we drive down to LA to watch Gorilla to see Quackenbush, and he was probably the most student of the game out of all the guys I've trained.
Very, very quickly though, you mentioned Quackenbush. Was he doing a dark match for WWF or WCW, something like that?
He was. I think it was on Gorilla when Gorilla was in its
early
stages.
PWG. Yeah. I saw him there. Very quickly, Kratos got not just New Japan work, and I think one other promotion there, at least one other promotion, but all the stuff he's done for Billy Corgan's NWA, big. So that's amazing to see such a nice guy, one of our brothers there. Timmy Thatcher, I saw him as part of Gabe Sapolsky snapped him up for Evolve, the real Evolve, not the WWE version now. And I saw him have amazing matches with Johnny Gargano and Drew Gulak. To where they look like shoots. They're just amazing. So refreshing. But one guy, when you talk about unique, I think he came down from Supreme Pro to APW for a long time, and he did like a fake marriage to one of the female wrestlers that by that point Roland had passed, I think. But something the Insano, what was that guy's name?
Tilo the Insano?
Yeah. Wasn't he a Sac guy or a Reno guy?
He wrestles there, but I think he was a Jekyll's guy. I think Jekyll's trained him.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Jekyll's trained him, and I don't know if he was at APW when you trained him, or if he's had to start doing his.
Oh, he was at APW because he was like a regular on the shows, and he would come out like in Baby Huey cartoon outfits, like he was 3 years old. Sort of like what Ivan Putski and Mighty Igor did early in their careers. That's crazy. That's so much fun.
Yeah. I'm not sure if he even works anymore. I think he might work for Jekyll's, and that's it. Because Jekyll's runs out of Bay Area now, Puppet Masters Dojo. He runs shows, and I think he's going back into running a school soon as well.
What part of the Bay Area? Where is Jekyll's? In the Bay Area.
I've only worked for him once, and I want to say shit. I don't even know. I don't even remember where it was.
What's his promotion called? Something Puppet? What'd you say his promotion's called? Puppet
Master Dojo. Puppet Masters? Yeah. Puppet Masters Dojo. Yeah.
So Evan, do you have an additional follow-up question for?
Sure. Jamie? What do you consider some of your career highlights and proudest moments?
There'd probably be two for different reasons. One would be anytime I get to be in the ring with my kids. I've got to team with all of them as a tag team. I've got to wrestle the third one because I have a baby now. Again, I haven't got to match yet, but I've done some tag team stuff with them. And then we were supposed to do that 8-man all together, and it went awry. But of course, anytime I'm in the ring with them, probably the most meaningful to me was when I worked for Roddy at Portland Uncut. He's my idol. Him and Flair were the two guys that I idolized myself out of in wrestling. They were just always my favorite two guys to watch. And when I finally got to work for Roddy, and he actually welcomed me in and liked my work and made me the champ and just did so much. I already had been wrestling, 15 years, and I just felt like a little kid learning again because he's just so smart. Like the stuff he was just telling me, teaching me, and just the way his thought process was and stuff, and just the way I tell people you see his character on TV and stuff, but when you see him in person, he's the same person. Like he'll tell people flat out, yeah, you're shit. You need to quit the business. And you watch these kids just walk away with their tail between their legs because Roddy Piper told them that, and he's just dead serious, and he's being honest with them. He's like, you don't have what it takes. And
What was
like,
what was the name of this promotion? He did a promotion for a bit in Portland.
It was called Portland Uncut. We were on Fox up there on Fox. I think we only lasted like almost the actual promoter there was something else, but Piper was like the figurehead booker, and then Lenny Grappler was the main booker, but Piper was like the guy. He'd come in and rip the booking sheet up and say, this is what we're doing, and then he'd fucking just change everything, on that morning. 4 tapings on a Saturday, and then do house shows throughout the week, so, but yeah, it was just a great learning experience. I became close with him, his wife, and his kids. I'm actually going up to Portland the end of the month. They started Portland Wrestling up again, and his wife's a big reason why I'm going up there. His wife, and then Lenny, the grappler.
We've had Len on the show also.
Yeah,
I love
but Kitty Toombs, Piper's widow, had told me because when he passed away, I spoke at his memorial at the LA Comedy Store, and she brought all the kids, Colt and the rest of them, the whole brood. But then they moved to Vegas after he passed in 2016, and it was a lot of the talent, Greg Valentine, Sabu, RVD, and his new wife. They all moved there, because no state tax. But then, like, his daughter Ariel moved and got married to Florida, where she has a school and promotion with her husband, and all the kids wandered off. Colt tried both pro wrestling and MMA training with Judo Gene LaBelle here in LA, who was my longtime boss, gave me lifts to the Olympic all those years. But back very quickly, Evan knows the story, Russ may not. Roddy Piper debuts in Winnipeg against Larry Hennig. He does a couple of shots in Kansas City. He didn't even have his gimmick yet. He goes to Houston. Red Bastien was close to since about 71, 72, finesses him, and then goes to send him to Roy Shire. But he says, well, they want you to do a battle royal show. They need a hand in L.A. This is January 23rd of 1976. Chavo Guerrero had already debuted, who Piper would feud with in L.A. for 3 whole years. But Piper comes in, opening match of our first show of the year, the biggest show of the year, the 22-man annual Battle Royal. He's in the opener against Tony Rocco, who was being falsely advertised by Mike LaBelle as Argentina Rocca's nephew. They have a 10-minute Broadway. Piper is nondescript. Nobody knew whether to cheer, boo him, like no personality. Within a week, our genius booker got him going with the bagpipes, and then every week he'd wear a T-shirt, custom made with some news event, and Gene LaBelle was working with him on promos and, teaching him how to do a little hooking, shooting and stuff. And within a week, they debuted him as a heel in San Diego. He became our lead heel for 2.5 years. And the amazing thing was he became best friends with Lonnie Main, and they were on top going against each other, a team in 2 territories unrelated at the same time. No one in the biz had ever done that before, both San Francisco and LA. And that's how Lonnie died. He and Piper just had a tag match in LA, and he got in his car to make the long drive up the 5 freeway to San Francisco to work for Shire to do the TV and then the Cow Palace, and got hit by a DUI driver and died. And that's kind of what formulated Roddy's career. I got to get out of here and try something new. He was really depressed. That was his best friend, his road mate. And then he got the gig for Don Owen, and that became his father figure in his home, Hillsboro, Oregon. And so both at the funeral and the memorial, I was there. And very quickly, Roddy, when his book came out, because I had a ton of photos in it, he had me do his opens at Russ, you were there at the Borders in San Francisco, I think. So I would introduce him at these Barnes & Noble and Border stores. But for the San Francisco one, because he called himself the icon, very quickly, Russ will appreciate that. I got all the icons of San Francisco, including the mayors of Oakland and the mayor of San Francisco, to give him a proclamation plaque and keys to the city, all that stuff. And then we had a whole bagpipe troupe play him in when he came in. So if you're a Roddy Piper person, we'll get you the footage. But so it's great to hear that you had some life experiences with Roddy.
Yeah, I tell people, like, there's that saying where they say you never want to meet your idol, but that's wrong, man. Like, I've never met somebody so nicer and more. I mean, I don't get me wrong. Like, I was really intimidated by him. So of course I watched my P's and Q's, and I already had been wrestling for a while, so I wasn't like one of these young guys who are gonna just feel they can tell Roddy Piper what they think their angle should be, or what they should be doing. I was just kind of like, yes sir, no sir, what do you need me to do? And he's,
when I met Roddy Piper, I told him I was a huge fan of his movies. I'd seen Jungle Ground and Hell Comes to Frogtown. He said, "Son, you're a bigger fan of my movies than I am."
Yeah.
I wanted to bring up, though, you mentioned your sons being involved in wrestling. Tell us about your son's involvement and what it's like to be the father of kids that are becoming successful in professional wrestling.
Well, my oldest, his name is Salem. She's just turned 26 or 27ish. I don't know. She's taking time off the business right now, but she's getting in shape. She's got a great job now, so she works for DOA a lot. That's her home up there in DOA. 17-year-old, his name's Bishop Dorian. He's working here locally, works for me and a couple other companies. Just started working for me up in Yuba City and
wrestling for charity.
Wrestling for charity, yeah, wrestling for charity. And then my son Titus is he's really not in the States anymore. He works for West Coast Pro Gorilla, but he's normally up in Japan. He works for Marvelous a lot, and then Noah's like his home base.
Wow.
Yeah, but he's
did he do a bunch of stuff for Ring of Honor too?
Yeah, he did some tapings for him. He got to work Juice and got to work Rocky Romero. Rocky likes him a while.
Well, then he's in it. He's in it. New Japan if Rocky likes him.
Yeah, and I business, but there's a lot of eyes on him, and there's been for a while. He just, I don't know what the holdup is. He's got. Alex Shelley's like his biggest fan. Yeah, Alex Shelley did a promo and put Titus over on it and just says nothing but great things about him. And Ospreay loved him when they worked. And he's worked all these guys who just put him over huge. Actually got his big break in Japan because Kento Kobashi came down to do a signing and watched him wrestle. And then right after watching him wrestle, he tweeted about him. He was like, "I've been in the States for a month and a half, and the best wrestler I saw tonight, his name's Titus Alexander." Put him over huge. And then, of course, Titus, that's like his biggest, Titus is like his biggest fan. Titus.
I remember when he was like 5-6 years old with the CCW, just crawling up to the ring, apron, and he couldn't even see over the edge of the ring apron because he was so small. And it's just amazing to me that he's now like a full on pro wrestling adult. Sometimes when you don't see somebody in decades, you freeze them at the age they were when you last saw them. And it's just amazing he's grown up to be so successful. You must be really proud of him.
It's funny because there's a lot of younger kids around here, or you have like a lot of fans my age, and he'll go in there, he worked like Carlito for BAW, or was it BTW in the Bay Area? Or he'll work like Kazarian or something, and all the local guys are like, "Oh my God, that's crazy!" Blah blah. I'm like, dude, he just worked Marufuji up in Japan. Like he works like all these huge names. He worked he works like Takesha, and he just works like all these huge names. And I'm just like, guys, like that's cool. He got and he worked like Sheldon Benjamin and stuff. Like those are a night off. Like he's working these guys in Japan that are they don't know what's a word. And
wait, what's his ring name? I'm going to look him up. What's his ring name?
His name is the Future Franchise, or I think they call him just the franchise now, Titus Alexander.
Let's have him on this show.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll try to get him. He's not one for talking much, but he'll do it. We don't have to do an hour.
Hey, tell him this shirt I'm wearing, Ribera-san from Ribera's Restaurants there, one of my tours in Japan gave me. And I can't sell this to like bully Bubba Ray because he doesn't think anybody that's not a wrestler should get. But I got 3 Ribera's ring jackets. And you remember some of the guys in APW, well, a few of them paid to go there and then asked promotions to bring them in. But others were properly asked to come in. And that's the big badge of honor, is to get a Ribera jacket, come back to the States, wear it down to the ring. And there were some guys in APW that did that. And it's pretty amazing. There was 2 Ribera's restaurants for a while, but now it's just back to the original.
He goes to the original one, the small one. But he was up there, and Levi Shapiro was up there with him. And Levi's like, hey, are you going to get your dad a jacket? He's like, he won't wear it. And he's like, why not? He's like, well, because he didn't earn it. He didn't come here, do a match and get it, so he won't wear it. So, he's smart. Titus is smart in that way, but he gets the problems. He gets, everybody and their mother's got a podcast now. So, these guys, they all want to talk to Titus, and he's like, you don't have a fan base. You guys are all new. Like he's doing podcasts for like huge people. So like you guys, I'm sure he'd love to do it.
Yeah, well, if he comes on, I'm going to speak Nihongo to him. So we'll see just how good his Japanese is.
He's learning, but many times
it's not an easy language. But I purposely learned it when I was 14 so I could get the boys to post when I go over there.
No, I tell everybody he speaks Disneyland because that's the one thing he does when he goes to Japan. He goes to Disneyland.
Tokyo Disneyland.
But he goes up there usually like a month and a half at a time, and then come back for a couple. Like he's coming back February, the second week in February. Then he goes to Germany for that big tournament up there. I think it's WXW. I think it's called.
Yeah.
He's going to
Europe is on fire. Europe is on fire with the. It's amazing the guys that they've churned out, and Ospreay and Zack Sabre Jr. They're out of this world. They are just incredible workers, and so great to see.
He's after when he comes back. I think he comes back for a week, and then he goes back to Japan for. I think he's doing 3 months this time. So who knows? He's happy doing what he's doing. But he's 25 now, and he's already getting some injuries and stuff, and it's the nagging injuries. This hurts, that hurts. I'm like, well, son, you gotta take care of yourself and learn to work old school.
As a father,
let me ask you about your shirt. Oh, what did you say,
As a father, though, do you worry about that? But
I mean, I do. Like my oldest gets it. And when she works, she bumps. Her bumps mean something. Her punches, all that stuff means something. Titus is more of the indie-rific guy where he $1 million, so he likes to do the big bumps. He's not as bad as most, but when he works like Nick, Nick Wayne's his best friend. So when he works Nick, they're doing all kinds of dive outs and all kinds of crazy shit. And, I worry about him, but then I'm like, man, I was bumping on tables with barbed wire and glass. And, I'll be a hypocrite if I'm like, hey, you got to protect it. Don't do that. So I try to persuade him from it. All I can do is when he's here, work out with him and make sure he's doing his body right, and trying to protect himself. But, all my kids, they wrestle one way in front of me. And then when they're gone, they're doing all the leg slapping and all that bullshit that all these young kids are doing, and what can I do? It's like I tell like a lot of guys, like of those of us that are old schooler guys, like we can tell these guys you can't do this, you can't do that. But then when you look on AEW, these guys are making millions of dollars doing what we're saying you shouldn't be doing. It's hard for them to believe it, like wrestling's changed. I don't agree with, who's the kid that just that suplex off the top rope with Moxley.
Right. The Australian kid.
Yeah.
That's what I was going to ask you. Did all of you guys see William Regal's tweet about not doing stupid shit? Very important message to these kids, exactly what you're talking about. My other thing was, maybe you can comment on that, but did your 3 kids develop this love and want to be in the business because of you as a wrestler, their dad, which would be a natural, or did they kind of discover it on their own? I'm sure you didn't push it on them, so they did discover the love for wrestling.
We were always about football, and I was backing away from the business because I was the head coach of the high school football team here in our town. So I ran the whole program, and then even the youth program fell under my umbrella, so I was really into that. Titus tore his ACL his senior year, tore his junior year, and then again his senior year. So they pulled all the scholarships. His senior year, I was training my oldest to wrestle. And, I wasn't that old, but I was still old. So I didn't want to bump every day. So when Titus was doing his rehab for his knee, I said, why don't you come in and take some bumps and just bump for Salem so she can get her stuff down. So they started kind of working together, and his knee got better. And, SPW, they went with me to a show, and then SPW's like, hey, we lost the building. We can't do this. We can't be here anymore. I said, hey, well, since you guys are leaving, can my kids have a match? And they're like, can they wrestle? I'm like, well, yeah, I've been training them. And Titus had never even had a practice match. He just been bumping. Yeah, you guys can go and you'll be good. So they went in there, did a 10-minute match, and fucking the boys are popping for him. And, Titus came back out and he's like, I don't want to do football anymore, Dad. I want to try to wrestle. And I was like, fuck, man. Like, you guys need to go to college. You need to do this. And then, it's the same thing. I have a master's degree in education, but I don't use it in my life. I'm like, actually the job I just got, you need a master's degree. So I'm finally using it to what it's, so I can make it worth it. But I was telling them, you guys got to go to college, and then I'm thinking, like, I'll be a hypocrite if I'm telling you have to do this, and then I'm not using mine. So I just said, well, if we're gonna do this, let's go. And then that's when I started training people again. And at this time, I took over Virgil Flynn's school when he passed away, and I was running his school, so they were a part of that school. And as we trained, people kept dropping out. It wasn't like my training is a little different than most people. So I don't know if they just didn't like the hard work, or if they just didn't like me telling them they're going to go to the WWE, or they're not going to go to the WWE, just quit. So it ended up being me, my kids, and then 2 other guys that came from another place. And then that was it. We were off to the races. And then I actually after I trained those 4, I kind of stopped again. And it wasn't until my youngest was 14, and he's like, I think I want to wrestle, Dad. I'm like, shit, dude, like, just give me a break. But I was like, if you're going to do it, I want to be the one to train you. So then I just went full board Ugly Dojo, and I'm on my 4th class right now that I just graduated. So, we're making it happen. But yeah, that's I never pushed them. They just kind of got into it. Bishop, the youngest, like, that's all he's ever wanted to do. He never wanted to do football or rugby, anything. He just wanted to be a wrestler. The other 2 kind of were just like, it was a backup plan, and they're both really good at it. So,
That's amazing. Wait, so there's no more wrestling, no more Supreme at the Roy Shire's old Sacramento Municipal Auditorium?
No,
there's no more wrestling there?
The last couple, AEW ran there last year.
Right.
Like Titus was on there. He wrestled against Samoa Joe, Hook, and then I forgot who their partner was, a Japanese guy. They did a 6-man, and it was like Titus, Charlie, and some other guy. And then, but because like Will Hobbs was there, Cage was there, Johnny was there, so I went to see everybody. I'm good friends with Danny Garcia and BK, Brian Keith, so I got to go see everybody. But that was the last time wrestling's been in that building. And before that, I think NXT was there like 10 years ago or something like that. It's just, but he can feel it, to make it worthwhile,
Tell people about the Ugly Dojo and what is involved there, and what you're providing for the next generation.
Say that again. You're cutting out.
Of the Ugly Dojo. Tell people about the Ugly Dojo, what that's all about, and what you're providing for the next generation of wrestlers.
I pretty much along the same lines with guys like Oliver John and MPT as well. So we're kind of all along on wrestling and the way it should be done. So we're kind of trying to go back to not like how people are like, well, it's old school, it's got to be this, but like we just want to make it look real and physical. We want to make it look like hold should mean something. There shouldn't be a transition to a spot. Like a headlock shouldn't be something to get you to the next move. It's a headlock's a submission hold, so you need to make it look like a submission hold. So we're just trying to go back to where things look more like a shoot, more like a fight, and there's some more realism in it, along the lines, and we're big bumps and all that stuff. Like I can't control that outside my walls, but at my shows, even no matter who I bring in, I tell them, what are you doing in your match? And when they tell me, you need to take that out. You don't need to do that German off the top rope. You don't need to do this on a chair. You don't need to do this shit. There's 75 people here. You don't need to do all this stuff, dude. Like it doesn't make any sense, So I try to control what guys on my shows do by just not allowing them to do crazy spots that they're risking bumping on their neck, and I try to just tell them you can get the same response from the fans if you just make a punch mean something. If you're just throwing it to
the
throw
art
it,
of the sell. The art of the sell.
Yes.
Nobody wants to sell anything.
Yeah. And I try to really break that down, because a lot of greenhorns here, old farts say, well, you got to learn how to tell a story, but then they don't tell them what that entails, or they tell them like, what's all the small things, but what are those small things? You just tell them this, then, if you don't tell them exactly what you're talking about, they're never going to know. They can't go home and fix it if you don't tell them why, wrenching this wrist block 20 times in a row doesn't make sense. why you can't low blow 5 times in a match. Like doesn't make sense. So they don't get it unless you sit and explain it to them. So my shows, even my refs know if somebody low blows, stop the match, it's over. We don't. That's an illegal move. If you have to break somebody off the ropes 3 times, call the match, it's over. They're not listening to you. The ref has to be figure, and if the guy's choking the guy 10 times and you're still saying one more time, and you're just shitting on everything we do. So people on my
Not
shows,
every
they come
match
in
on the
for the
card.
first time.
Not every match on the card has to end in a run-in.
No, not at all.
No.
But even like before, we do our matinee shows on one Saturday morning a month, and what I do is I get all these young kids who are not working anywhere because other companies have all their guys on the show. All these old farts don't want to give up their spot, so you have these guys that are ready to wrestle, but there's no room for them. So I bring them in, and I bring them in at 10 a.m. and we train for 2 hours. Me and Oliver John or me and Zach run the class, and we train these guys on this is how you throw heat. This is how you bump and feed. This is why you sell this and blah, blah, and then when we put them in the matches, we tell them this is what we want to see. And I even told the fans before, hey, the first person through the curtain, that's the heel. The second person that comes through, well, that's the baby face. Because these guys are, every company they go to, they're different. So I just try to get the fans to head up, and I tell them, hey, you're going to see some stuff the same in every match. But we're here to teach these guys to work on stuff, not to let them run wild. So you may see the fucking headlock takeover spot 4 times, but that's what we're working on today. So we're smart. There's only 35 people in there, and they're usually family and friends. But I figured since people are pulling the curtain back and giving this shit away anyways, I might as well have the young guys learn the proper way to do things. So we just try to teach some realism, simplicity, and build up on your match. Like we don't need 10 near falls in match 1. It just doesn't make sense. So I plan everything out. I tell my guys, even on my bigger shows, I'm like, hey, we're the first half of the show for intermission. Nobody does near falls. Nobody needs to do this. We don't need to do 1, 2, kick out and match 1. It's so I'm hoping that they can learn the tempo of a match and how you tell a story on a show through a match, or through the match card, not just one match, because some of these guys, they work one match a month and this is their WrestleMania. So they want to get all their shit in, and I'll even tell my guys like, hey, we do what's called a lethal lottery where we who's wrestling each other. So the wrestlers will sit outside at ringside and the fans, we have dominoes with the wrestler's name on it, and they'll pull it out and say, hey, Joe Schmo, his opponent is fucking Job Guy 2. And then they go and wrestle. And then I tell the ref in the earpiece, yes, so-and-so is going over. And they have to just call it in the ring, That way they actually keep it simpler and learn like this. I tell them, guys, this is what we used to do. Like when I first broke in and I went to Memphis, like we had separate locker rooms, I was like, and matches were always good and solid. You didn't have to memorize a spot, And what I've learned is that I watch these guys canning their match, and they're canning all this big shit, and then they never can the selling. So when they go in their match, they're not selling it because why? It's not in the Rolodex of the memory that, okay, he hits me here, I got to sell here, I got to sell here. They just think, okay, boom, boom, we're going to work to the spot where I whip and we do the flip, So I try to cut out all that as much as I can and just teach them like, guys, this shit, it's not rocket science, man. It's like you have to make these people buy in, and that's what sells and that's what draws and that's what makes the people buy into you. It's not your flippy shit. It's just that stuff they forget about. If you can draw them in emotionally, that's when you make money, and that's when people are invested in you,
Exactly.
And
I'm
what
looking
can
at
they
a
learn?
shot. I'm looking at a shot of Titus. He looks like a mix between you 25 years ago with the mustache and goatee and AR Fox, who's now in
Yeah.
ROH and AW. I mean, Titus,
Yeah.
he looks just like you when we first saw you debut. It's amazing.
Well, I hope,
And right? I mean, I can't believe
I
it
hope he's a
now.
little
Now I
handsome.
know who he is. I couldn't place
Yeah.
him. But let me very quickly, before we have you do plugs and Russ has more for you, about your shirt, are you really into like the 20s history, like old farts like Evan and I really love to glean that stuff, and Thez and Hackenschmidt and Farmer Burns and stuff?
I can pull out my Farmer Burns shirt if you want me to. I got like
Wow.
my greatest
Wow.
joy. I tell the wrestlers is wrestling cool, and I know you guys think you know the wrestling history, but like if you would just learn these stories like of how this shit got started and the whole carnival days, and like I try to tell them like my students, what's a mark, and then they'll tell me, oh, it's a fan. I'm like,
Nope.
turned to that, but that's not what it started for. So then I try to break it. Dude, the history of wrestling is my greatest pleasure in life. Like I said, on the new school wall, I have I always tell my students who's the biggest draw of all time, and they always say, "Oh, Stone Cold about one." I'm like, no, it's Londos. Like
Yeah.
fucking Londos was the biggest draw of all time, the Golden Greek. They have no idea
Exactly.
what I'm talking about. I'm like, you can't find much video of them, but there was people driving on trains for days to go watch them wrestle in like those big soccer fields and stuff. I'm like, so I try to tell my guys like the actual meaning of the words we use and where they came from and the history of things. And like when I tell them about the Gold Dust Trio, they had no idea what it is.
Yeah.
I'm like, this is where the work part of it started, and so I mean, it's just like I said, it's a shame, but I try to smarten my kids up as much as I can. But there's a few of us out there who actually give a shit about the
Oh, of course. Evan and I are doing a book on John and Chris Tolis, whose fan club I ran
Okay.
in the 70s, for most of the 70s. But John told me, because I was really close to him in particular, because he lived in Woodland Hills near me, and he had to ask, because out of respect, everybody had respect for Golden Greek Jimmy Londos, the first one. He asked him if he could use the name Jim Londos, and Londos said, "Sure, because you're showing me respect by asking me."
Golden
And
Greek.
the
Yep.
Golden Greek, John Tolis, who he and Fred Blassie. Fred Blassie turned babyface after it was 3 cage matches with the Sheik, heel, 1970 at my Olympic Auditorium in LA. And then he became a mega face. But to solidify it, he had a match with Rocky Johnson where he said, "I'm going to have what we called scientific match." It was baby then. And he goes, "And if I use one underhanded tactic, I'm word for word, I will leave town." And so he has a 40 or 45 minute, it was probably closer to 35 legit, but 45-minute Broadway, didn't do any heel stuff, scientific match. And then the feud with Tolis where he gets blinded. And that led to the outdoor LA Coliseum where the Rams, the UCLA Bruins, SC Trojans played football. Seats, depending on how it's configured, up to 125,000. They broke. It was only, a little shy of 29,000. They broke all of Lou Thesz's gate and attendance records in California against guys like Leo Namalini of the 49ers and Baron Michelle Leone in LA. Thez had set all California gate and attendance records in the 50s in San Francisco against Leo and in Southern California against Baron Michelle Leone. And then Tolis and Blassie, August, whatever the date was, 17th in 1971 at the Outdoor Coliseum. They advertised it as the 2 longest feuds in the biz. Tolis, Blassie on top to get Fred's revenge for the blinding. Bobo and Sheik underneath. Mil Mascaras and the original El Solitario had the match of the night. They brought it up from Mexico. I'm talking the original Solitario Sr. who went to New Japan. Absolutely incredible wrestler. Gordman and Goliath against Shibuya Saito. Heel tag teams. Pat Patterson, Ripper Collins, and like the opener. It was a stack card. Moolah, who got into a shoot with Betty Nikolai. They both had legit heat. It was, and so that broke the gate and attendance records Thez had previously held for years and years and years. So the history, everything goes back to the history, and wrestling's roots go back both to 1880s France, but also even the Civil War, when apparently they were staging like choreographed matches to entertain the troops and stuff like that. It goes back that far. We were thinking, carnival days. I just finished. I've got to get it out. I'm going to submit it to Evan to hopefully put out the dying art of Carney, and I hope people will pass on the art of speaking Carney. And because like the kids today, a lot of them don't know it. You go in those locker rooms, you say, "Do you know Kizarny?" and they don't know what you're talking about.
It's funny because I have another thing on the history too. When I tell kids about like, you guys understand Carney, they're always going to be like, "Oh yeah, I know kayfabe," and I'm like, "It's not kayfabe. It's Carney's." And then so I don't even want to fucking start talking because I'm not an expert at it, but like Grappler, that's the way he used to talk to us, So I kind of learned a lot from him. And then Piper would once in a while would chime in with something, but not a lot of people spoke it when I was breaking it here in my area, So, but I try to tell them it's a way we communicate, dude. Like, and it's like it comes back from the carnival days. That's why it's called Carney. It's not a wrestling thing, really. It's a Carney thing, But one thing I always tell when I'm doing like a seminar or something, I always tell the kids, I know all you guys think you know the history of pro wrestling, blah, blah. It's like, who's the most influential wrestler that's helped the black community more than anybody? And they're going to say Booker T, they're going to say this, and I'm like, it's Sputnik Monroe.
Exactly,
And
exactly. In
nobody
Memphis.
fucking knows what I'm talking about. I'm like, dude, if you research Sputnik Monroe, you're going to be fascinated. He was such a fascinating guy on how he did so much for the black community, but from a heel standpoint, he opened up everything for the black community.
No, he refused to wrestle unless they let the black intermingle with white people and not be stuck up in the rafters.
And the
black people
so
could
well,
come down to the front row if they chose.
Yeah, he was the biggest draw, so they had to listen to him.
Yep.
Like, what are they going to do? Tell him, well, fuck you. He's the big draw, So I just tell people that's a great story. So like whenever and not just when I get a black student, but any student I get, I'm like, that's the story you need to listen to and understand that this shit is bigger than all of us, man. Like, history goes on beyond WrestleMania 1. Like, I like the older history. This newer stuff, it's just, it's whatever. But the old stuff to me is like, and I'm a catch guy too. Like, I love catch wrestling. So even like Billy Robinson's one of my favorite guys of all time wrestling. So I watch a lot of catch stuff as well. And I try to get my students to understand that, but they just, they're just who they are. But yeah, I'm fascinated by the history of pro wrestling because it's just a fascinating thing. Like I tell them like about Ricky Dozan, and you guys ever heard of Ricky Dozan? And and it's just like I said, they just part of me gets frustrated, but it's kind of my job to.
Who were the guys that helped Ricky Dozan get off the ground in Japan, start the first permanent men's touring company? It was Thez, Blassie, and the Duseks from Omaha, and a little bit later, Destroyer Dick Beyer when he went over there. When his wife knitted his Destroyer mask out of her stockings.
Yeah,
his first mask.
Yes.
Yeah.
Big Ugly, we could talk for another 2 hours on all this stuff. I really
when there's a brother that loves history, man, it could go 5.
Yeah, no, it's true. Really appreciate you being here for show number 300. Why don't you plug everything that's worth plugging, and hopefully we can get you and your son to be on. We haven't had a father-son combo ever.
Yeah, you talking about Titus?
No, Bishop, yeah.
Well, yeah, Eddie, you can bring all three. Bring all three. Bring all three. We will put them over to the moon.
Welcome.
Yeah. The only stuff I got a couple things going on. I got my company. We do matinee shows. We got one next Saturday. I'm gonna get my dates mixed up, but we also run here at the West Sacramento Jackrabbit Brewery. The big thing I got going on is called NorCal United, where it started off as a training seminar. We rented out the soccer arena. We set up 3 rings, and I had a trainer in each ring, and we just ran a training session for all the younger wrestlers in the Northern California area. It was like myself, Mustafa, Oliver John, Vinny was there, the Samoans were there, SPW guys were there. Just a who's who of Northern California trainers was there running classes, and it was great. So I decided to spur from that, we're going to do a show. So February 7th in Pacheco, we're going to do a Northern California United wrestling show. Main event is JR Kratos and Journey Fought 2. Myself, I'm wrestling Boyce LeGrand. Me and Boyce have never wrestled before, so we're gonna have our first match. Yeah, and then also Timothy Thatcher's working Zach, Mr. MPT, and then I got a bunch of other surprises coming up. We just signed a pretty big, but locally one of the bigger names. We're gonna announce his match coming up, but
maybe Boyce could use a manager for that match.
Wait, did you say Mustafa Saeed? Is he living with all his kids in Reno still?
No, he lives here in Sac.
Oh, really? Okay. Well.
Yeah, I think he only works for SPW here locally. And then if I ever do like something big, I always use Mustafa because I don't give a fuck. When that music hits, people go crazy. They love the guy. So. But other than the NorCal United thing, I'm making a return to Portland Wrestling. The end of the month, I'm going to 2-day shot there. That's part of why I'm going is because Roddy's wife was really interested in me coming back there. And one of her kids is wrestling there now. Teal is wrestling there. I think she was.
That's Ariel.
Yeah,
Ariel. She's the one with a school in Florida, but she's temporarily back in Oregon.
I think she comes up there just to wrestle. Just to wrestle, and of course, biz and stuff. But yeah, so I'm going up there to help out with them a little bit. Hopefully then my students will come. And I know a lot of people, since I decided to go there, I don't want to give too much history, but the guy that took the name over tried to run a show a few months back, and he tried to book Joey Ryan, and shit just went south, right? So he's kind of trying to clean up his name for the for the area in the booking. You know, he didn't, obviously it ended up not bringing Joey in. So he's trying to start over and do the right thing. So
That is so insane because you probably too. I was in the locker room with him a zillion times. Never saw him act untoward against any female. But you know, you never know.
People, like, I know he's always had a female, like he's always had a woman with him. But I don't know what happens when they're not in the locker room because I wasn't that close to Joey. I just know, I mean, it was obvious he liked women a lot because that's all they ever talked about. Yeah, I don't, like I said, I've never going to be the one to say, hey, the woman's making it up.
Well, he was teaming. How many years did he team with Candice LeRae? And he was one of the founding fathers, like with Disco Inferno, of PWG, Pro Wrestling Guerrilla in LA, which is an incredible promotion. I was blown away, you know, seeing Samoa Joe against Danielson and just a shitload of amazing matches down there with all kinds of talent.
There was like Timmy. They're just the guys that I went through there was just, you know.
And Modest and Donovan, we got them to come down there, and they came down with Mike Diamond too once.
Yeah, Max
and God rest his soul too. What another nice guy we lost in Max Justice, Mike Diamond.
Yeah. When they shot that Beyond the Mat movie, I was there that's when I first started training there. So I was one of the security guards when Max went after that fan. And man, like, you want to talk about scaring the shit out of somebody. Like, I was looking like, holy shit, man, this guy is going to kill this guy, you know. They're like, you got to hold him back. And they didn't smarten us up, us rookies, to anything, you know. So I was thinking, like, man, this guy's going to kick my ass, you know. But yeah, Max is definitely.
Wait a minute, because for years, Barry Blaustein and Barry Bloom, who was his, you know, super agent, but he was the guy helping Blaustein get the movie off the ground. So I was his event photographer, you know, everywhere for the ECW stuff, the WWE. But I convinced him he was going to do. He had vacillated, didn't know what to do, and I said, well, why don't you do something on an older legend like Terry Funk, maybe a current one and an upcoming future one. And my goal was, I was pushing for either Candido or Mike Diamond, or excuse me, Mike Modest, and got him hooked up with Roland. And you remember Roland titted up the APW dojo with all of the military camouflage color stuff, the green and brown and stuff, had it all titted when he came up to film. And so I was really happy, but then I was unhappy that Roland came off as an even bigger heel in the film than Vince Jr.
Oh God, yeah.
Roland was living off that. He knew how to work it, but he was the carny, the head heel of that documentary, the greatest wrestling docu of them all, Beyond the Mat.
Yeah,
with
definitely.
Bret Hart's Wrestling with Shadows a close second.
Oh yeah.
Well, we've really just scratched the surface of the millions of things that you know about wrestling and all the things that you've contributed to the NorCal wrestling history and to the fabric of it. You're woven throughout it. And it's been my pride and pleasure to be associated with you through CCW and Pro Wrestling Iron and APW and all that stuff. You've been just a great guy to know and work with, and I do hope to keep working with you with Wrestling for Charity and some of your other stuff. So, you know, thank you for all of that. Thank you for being part of show number 300. If people wanted to get a hold of you, how would they get in touch with you?
I'm available on Facebook, Instagram, Ugly Dojo on both. Also TikTok. Ugly Dojos or Big Ugly 61, but Instagram's the easiest way to get a hold of me. The Ugly Dojo.
Great. I don't know why it took us 5 years to get you on the show. I guarantee you won't be another 5 years before we have you on again. Really great guest, and we really appreciate it. So from everybody tonight, we'll bid you adieu, and we'll see everybody next week. Good night, everyone.
Buena suerte y combate Kurosai. Great.